the alien princess, risked her throne to save one human life. Beyond the transparent barrier stretched the vast darkness of space, dotted with stars that shimmered like scattered diamonds. Zithra, her homeworld, floated peacefully near the edge of the Pharaon Nebula, its energy fields pulsing in gentle waves. To her people, Zithra was perfect, pristine, and untouchable. But Elira had always wondered about the worlds beyond, especially those inhabited by creatures so different from her own. Her thoughts were interrupted by the distant blip of the space radar. "A ship is entering the sector," one of her aides announced. Elira turned her luminous eyes toward the monitor. The object was small, human-sized, barely noticeable against the immensity of the nebula. She felt a small thrill. Humans had visited this region before, but their ships were fragile, their technology primitive compared to Zithra's crystalline fleets. They were explorers, curious, bold, and, she suspected, reckless. Elira's curiosity deepened as the ship came closer. Its trajectory wavered, a sign of instability. A small alarm sounded, and she realized the ship was caught in a gravitational anomaly, a storm of twisting energy streams that could tear it apart. The humans might not survive this. A sense of urgency gripped her. Most Zitharans would have ignored such a fragile creature, letting nature or misfortune take its course. But Elira did not share their indifference. "Prepare the energy shield," she commanded, her voice calm but firm. The aide hesitated. "Princess, the Council has ordered no interference. Human lives are not worth risking Zithra's security." Elira's fingers tightened on the railing. "If we do nothing," she said quietly, "that ship and everyone on it will be destroyed. I will not watch that happen." She did not wait for further protest. With a thought, her mind connected to the ship's coordinates. Zithra's shields, normally used to protect the planet itself, expanded outward, forming a luminous barrier in the path of the storm. Energy surged, illuminating the surrounding space in colors no human eye had ever seen. The small ship shuddered violently as it passed through the shield. Elira held her breath, her heart pounding. Inside the human ship, Captain Eric's eyes widened as the strange barrier enveloped them. The storm outside twisted and raged, battering the ship with incredible force. Metal groaned and sparks flew across the control panels. Eric struggled to keep the ship steady, gripping the controls as though his life depended on it. And it did. He had never seen anything like the shimmering shield. The storm's energy seemed to flow harmlessly around them, as if guided by an invisible hand. For the first time in minutes, Eric allowed himself a breath of hope. Back on Zithra, Elira felt every tremor of the ship as if it were her own body. When the last wave of the storm passed, she exhaled. The ship floated within the shield, intact but heavily damaged. Elira's mind raced. The humans were alive but barely. They would need immediate repair and rescue. Her aides looked at her with astonishment. "Princess, you have saved them," one murmured. Another whispered, "The Council will never forgive this." Elira did not answer. She only stared at the ship, now gently drifting toward the planet's docking bay. There was no time for politics. A life had been spared, and that was enough for now. When the human ship landed, its hull battered and smoking, Elira waited at the bay. Eric emerged, stumbling but alive, his suit scorched in places and his hair disheveled. His eyes, wide with awe and confusion, met hers. He had expected hostility, maybe even death. Instead, he saw a figure of grace and power, her crystalline uniform glowing faintly in the dim light. "You saved us," he said finally, his voice hoarse. Elira inclined her head. "Yes, you were in danger." "No one deserves to die unnecessarily." Eric blinked, uncertain whether to be grateful or bewildered. Why would you risk so much for a human?" Elira's lips curved into a faint smile. "Because life itself is valuable. And sometimes the smallest actions change the course of everything." The human did not fully understand, and Elira did not explain further. Words were not enough. She guided him through the docking bay, past the curious gazes of Zitharan guards and aides, toward a medical chamber. The humans' injuries were not severe, but the shock and strain of the storm had left them weak. Elira stayed until Arik had stabilized, making sure he was comfortable before she finally left the chamber. Outside, the wind of political whispers began to stir. Zithara's council would hear of this. Her aides tried to prepare her for the backlash. "Princess," one said cautiously, "the council will call this an act of recklessness. They may try to strip you of your title or worse." Elira's eyes glowed softly. "Let them talk," she said. "I am not responsible for the fear of others. I am responsible for what is right." Later, alone in the palace gardens, Elira reflected on the event. She watched crystalline flowers sway in the artificial breeze, their light reflecting across the polished paths. Humans fascinated her, their curiosity, their persistence, their audacity to venture into the unknown. Saving them had been instinctive, yet it also filled her with a strange, unfamiliar warmth. A bond had formed in an instant, fragile yet undeniable. Meanwhile, Arik explored the palace under careful supervision. He marveled at the architecture, the shimmering walls, and the technology that seemed like magic to human eyes. Despite the recent trauma, he felt a surge of gratitude and respect for Elira. She had not only saved his life but also treated him with dignity and care. He knew that this encounter would shape not only his mission, but perhaps the way humans viewed the galaxy forever. That evening, as Zithara's twin moons rose over the crystalline city, Elira received a discreet message from the council. The words were stern and uncompromising. "Your actions have endangered the throne. You will answer for this. Explain why you saved the human life." Elira read the message and allowed herself a slow, measured breath. She had expected it. Her decision was dangerous, yes, but she could not regret it. She looked out over the city, her mind wandering to the human captain. What kind of life had he led before this moment? What values, hopes, and fears had guided him across the stars? Humans were unpredictable, often flawed, yet somehow endlessly fascinating. Elira realized that her choice to save him was more than an act of mercy. It was a choice to see the universe in a new light. Hours later, Arik, still recovering in the medical chamber, finally met her in the observation room. He looked weary but alive, his curiosity barely contained. "Princess," he began cautiously, I don't know how to thank you. You risked everything for me." Elira regarded him with calm composure. "It was not about you alone," she said. "It was about life itself, and perhaps about the possibility that one action, no matter how small, can shape the future." Arik nodded, slowly beginning to understand. He realized that Elira's courage was unlike anything he had ever seen. Humans often prided themselves on bravery, but this was different. A conscious, deliberate choice to defy authority, to stand alone for what was right. He felt an unspoken respect and something more, a bond forged in the fire of survival, though separated by species, culture, and worlds. The night deepened, and the stars above seemed to shimmer with an unusual intensity. Elira and Arik stood side by side, silent but connected. Somewhere in the galaxy, storms raged, ships drifted through unknown space, and civilizations clashed. Yet in that moment, two beings from entirely different worlds shared a quiet understanding. Humanity and Zithara, for all their differences, had found a fragile bridge of trust and hope. Little did they know, the act of saving one human life would ripple through the stars, setting into motion events that could challenge traditions, test loyalties, and redefine what it meant to lead. Princess Elira had acted for a single life, yet the consequences would reach far beyond her expectations. And Captain Arik, once a visitor to an alien world, had become a living testament to humanity's courage and to the strange, undeniable power of empathy. As the first part of their story ended, the galaxy seemed a little wider, a little more dangerous, and infinitely more mysterious. Elira knew that challenges lay ahead, political turmoil, enemies unseen, and the question of whether her people would ever understand her choices. But for now, she allowed herself a rare moment of quiet satisfaction. She had done what was right, and in doing so had glimpsed the extraordinary potential of life, courage, and the bonds that transcend the stars. Princess Elira sat in the high council chamber, the walls glowing softly with the pulse of Zithara's energy. The chamber was usually a place of calm discussion, but today it felt tense, alive with whispers of anger and disbelief. Elira could sense the disapproval radiating from the assembled council members. They had learned of her actions, rescuing a human from certain death, and the news had spread quickly. The council leader, Elder Varus, rose from his seat, his expression sharp and disapproving. "Princess Elira," he began, his voice echoing through the chamber, "your actions have broken our laws. You interfered with a vessel that should not concern us. You risked the throne and endangered our people for a human." He emphasized the word with disgust. Elira held her gaze steady, her expression calm. "I do not regret saving a life, Elder Varus," she said evenly. "The human was in danger. The rules of politics and tradition do not erase the value of life itself." Varus' eyes narrowed. "Value of life. We have laws for a reason, Princess. Our people depend on order, on discipline. By acting without council approval, you have shown recklessness and arrogance. If you continue down this path, you will force the council to act." The words stung, but Elira refused to show weakness. She had expected resistance. She had expected anger. What she had not expected was the silent glance of some council members, uncertain and hesitant. Not all of them were blindly against her. Some had begun to wonder if perhaps she was right, that life, regardless of origin, deserved protection. Meanwhile, across the docking bay, Captain Eric recovered slowly under the care of Zitharan medical officers. He had never seen such advanced technology, yet what fascinated him most was not the machines, but the people. The humans he had known on Earth were brave, resourceful, and sometimes reckless, but Zitharans were calm, precise, and patient. And among them, Princess Elira stood out, not just as a leader, but as someone who acted according to her conscience rather than fear. Eric had questions, many of them, but he knew that asking too soon could be dangerous. Zithara was a world of rules and customs he barely understood, yet curiosity burned within him. He wanted to learn, to understand, to connect. He could see that Elira had risked everything for him, and that act had created a bond, fragile but powerful. That evening, Elira walked through the palace gardens, her mind restless. The crystalline flowers swayed in the gentle artificial wind, their light refracting in mesmerizing patterns. She thought about her decision, about the ripple it had caused. She was a princess, heir to the throne, expected to uphold tradition and order. Yet in saving a single human life, she had defied everything she had been taught. A soft sound drew her attention. Eric had followed her, carefully and cautiously, his movements respectful. "Princess Elira," he began, "I hope I am not intruding. I wanted to speak with you." Elira turned, regarding him with her calm, glowing eyes. "You are welcome," she said. "Speak freely, Captain Eric. There is little I value more than honest words." Eric hesitated, then asked, "Why did you save me? Humans are strangers to your world. You could have let us perish. Why choose to intervene?" Elira considered the question carefully. "Because life matters no matter its origin," she said. "Your species may be different from mine, your technology primitive by our standards, but that does not make your life any less valuable. And perhaps," she added softly, "I saw in you something rare, a courage and determination that reminded me of what it means to live fully." Eric's chest tightened. He had never been seen in such a way by someone so powerful. Most humans regarded aliens with fear or suspicion. Here, on this distant planet, a princess had risked her life and her throne for him, and she regarded him not with condescension, but with respect and recognition. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden alarm. The docking bay sensors flashed red. A rival faction of Zithera, long resentful of Elira's rising influence and differing views, had launched an unauthorized patrol in the nearby sector. They claimed to be protecting Zithera from foreign threats, but their intent was clear. They saw humans as inferior, expendable, and a potential danger to Zithera's purity. Elira's eyes narrowed. She understood immediately that the patrol had no knowledge of her rescue mission. If they detected Eric's ship and the humans inside, they would likely destroy it. She moved quickly, issuing silent commands to the palace systems. The shields around the docking bay intensified, and defensive energy grids hummed to life. Eric watched in awe as the systems activated. "You can do all this just like that?" he asked, unable to hide his amazement. Elira gave a faint smile. "Zithera's technology is powerful, but it is not enough. Strategy, courage, and the willingness to act are just as important." As the patrol approached, Elira contacted her loyal captains. "We cannot allow them to harm these humans," she said firmly. "Prepare defensive measures but avoid aggression if possible. We must protect life first." The patrol fleet arrived, their ship sleek but heavily armed. They scanned the docking bay and immediately detected the human vessel. "Unauthorized vessel detected," their leader transmitted. "Eliminate the threat." Elira's voice cut through the comms. "This vessel is under the protection of the Crown. Any attack will be considered rebellion." The patrol hesitated, confused by her direct command. Not all of them agreed with the attack, but the hierarchy of Zithera demanded obedience. Still, the situation was delicate. Elira knew that any misstep could escalate into violence. She had to act carefully. Inside the docking bay, Eric prepared for the worst. He had seen enough battles in human history to understand that sometimes, no matter how skilled or prepared one was, survival depended on quick thinking and adaptability. He looked to Elira, and in her calm demeanor he found a strange reassurance. She was not just a leader, she was a protector, and he realized that humans and Zitherans could work together in ways neither species had imagined. The standoff lasted tense minutes. Then Elira made a bold move. Using Zithera's advanced energy network, she created a temporary corridor, allowing Eric's ship to escape into a safe trajectory beyond the patrol's sensors. The humans moved quickly, guided by Elira's calculations, while the patrol scanned in confusion, unable to detect them. When the threat passed, Elira returned to the palace gardens, her mind racing. She had successfully protected the human, but the political consequences were inevitable. The council would demand answers, and the rival faction would grow more resentful. Yet she felt a quiet satisfaction. In that moment, she had acted according to her values, proving that courage and empathy could overcome fear and prejudice. That night, she received a private message from Eric. "Princess Elira," it read, "your actions today saved more than my life. You showed me the strength of your people's heart and the possibility that humans and Zitherans might learn from each other. I am deeply grateful." Elira read the message, her fingers resting lightly on the crystal surface. She understood that gratitude was not enough to mend the tensions that her actions had caused, but it was a start. Perhaps the humans could teach Zithera something just as she had taught herself, that life, courage, and compassion were more important than rigid rules. The following days were filled with council meetings and whispered arguments in the halls of power. Elders debated fiercely, some insisting that Elira's actions had endangered the throne, while others cautiously supported her, claiming that her empathy demonstrated a new kind of leadership, one that could unify Zithera in uncertain times. Elira listened to all voices but remained firm in her conviction. She had acted out of principle, not politics, and she would not apologize for that. Meanwhile, Eric continued to recover. He explored Zithera under strict supervision, learning about its history, culture, and technology. He observed the interactions between Zitharans and humans, noting differences and similarities. In private moments, he shared stories of Earth with Elira, describing human courage, ingenuity, and the constant drive to explore. Elira listened, fascinated by his accounts, realizing that humanity's unpredictability was not weakness but a kind of strength. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, Elira spoke quietly. "You have taught me something, Captain Eric. Humans do not follow rules blindly, and they do not fear failure in the same way we do. That is remarkable," Eric smiled. "And you've shown me that even the most powerful civilizations can have a heart. You risked everything for me, for no reason other than it was right. That is extraordinary." Their shared understanding deepened. Across the galaxy, storms and battles continued, but in the palace gardens, two beings from different worlds forged a connection stronger than politics, hierarchy, or fear. Elira's courage had saved a life, and in doing so, she had opened the door to a future where humans and Zitharans could learn from each other, grow together, and perhaps change the galaxy forever. But challenges loomed. The Council would not forget, the rival faction would not forgive, and the humans' presence on Zithara would inevitably create friction. Elira knew that to protect the life she had saved, and to shape the future, she would need to act with both wisdom and boldness. And she was ready. For the first time, Elira felt the weight of her responsibility not just as a princess, but as a protector of life itself. And she understood that the path she had chosen would demand courage beyond anything she had faced before. Yet in her heart, she knew it was the right path. And sometimes, that was all that mattered. Princess Elira stood at the edge of the palace command deck, her glowing eyes scanning the starry expanse beyond Zithara. The distant shimmer of the human ship, now repaired enough to move under limited power, caught her attention. She knew the humans were capable, but the danger was far from over. The rival faction in the council had grown bold, sending reconnaissance fleets to monitor the humans, testing Zithara's security and her authority. They would not wait long before attempting a direct strike. Eric approached her, careful not to step too close. He had recovered remarkably, but his body still bore faint scars from the storm, yet his presence radiated determination. "Princess Elira," he said, "the patrols are increasing. They are preparing for something bigger. I can feel it. Their attack won't be limited to the humans. They might target your city too." Elira's gaze hardened. She had anticipated this. Protecting Eric had been the spark, but she now understood that the rival faction sought more than vengeance. They sought to challenge her, to prove that tradition and fear would always outweigh empathy. She shook her head slightly. "We will not allow them to succeed. Not against these people and not against Zithara. Gather your crew. We will work together to protect both." For the first time, humans and Zitharans coordinated openly. Elira and Eric gathered loyal captains, engineers, and pilots, forming a strategy that combined human adaptability with Zitharan technology. The humans brought creativity and ingenuity, often thinking in ways Zitharans did not. The Zitharans provided strength, precision, and advanced energy manipulation. Together, they represented a combination stronger than either side alone. Preparations for defense began immediately. The docking bay was fortified, shields strengthened, and escape corridors mapped for emergency evacuation. Eric worked tirelessly with his human engineers to adapt Zitharan technology for rapid deployment. He marveled at the crystalline systems, fascinated by their elegance and efficiency. But he knew that ingenuity alone would not win this battle. Courage and leadership would be the deciding factors. As night fell over Zithara, Elira walked through the palace gardens, reflecting on the coming conflict. The crystalline flowers glowed softly under the twin moons, their light casting long shadows on the paths. Her mind was a mixture of worry and determination. The council would demand explanations. The rival faction would challenge her authority, but She could not falter. She had risked everything to save one human life. Now she would risk even more to protect both her people and the humans who had come to her world in peace. The attack came just before dawn. Scouts from the rival faction, their ships sleek and aggressive, moved swiftly toward Zithara. Their intention was clear: overwhelm the planet's defenses and destroy the humans before they could escape. Elira's command deck hummed with activity as sensors tracked every movement. Energy shields flared, defensive turrets powered up, and the coordinated human Zitharan fleet positioned itself strategically. Eric's voice came through the comms, calm but firm. "Princess Elira, we're ready. Let's show them what cooperation can achieve." Elira nodded, her eyes glowing brighter. "Together, Captain, let's protect life and show that courage matters more than fear." The first wave of attack was sudden and fierce. The rival ships fired energy pulses that cracked the atmosphere near Zithara. Defensive shields absorbed much of the impact, but the tremors shook the planet and rumbled through the city. Humans and Zitharans moved in sync, coordinating attacks and defenses seamlessly. Elira directed the energy grids with precision, guiding human ships through corridors of safety and strategic advantage. Eric's ingenuity shone in the chaos. Using quick calculations and unconventional maneuvers, he guided human ships through narrow energy gaps, surprising the attackers. The Zitharans, initially skeptical of his methods, quickly adapted. They followed his lead, creating a dynamic defense that the rival faction had not anticipated. The battle intensified. The attackers tried to isolate Eric's ship, believing that if they destroyed it, the humans would scatter and Zithara's defenses would falter. Elira anticipated this and acted swiftly, positioning Zitharan cruisers to form a protective barrier around the humans. She fought not only with strategy but with courage, placing herself at the forefront of the defense. In the midst of the chaos, Elira sensed a surge of energy from the rival fleet, a concentrated attack aimed directly at the palace itself. The council had underestimated her resolve. The princess realized that this was no longer merely about saving humans. It was about protecting her people, her home, and the ideals she believed in. Without hesitation, she diverted the full power of the planetary energy grids toward the attackers. Blinding beams of light erupted into space, deflecting missiles and destabilizing the enemy ships. Eric watched in awe as the energy beams carved paths through the attackers, demonstrating not just Zitharan power, but Elira's mastery over it. He felt pride, respect, and a renewed sense of determination. Humanity had faced countless dangers across the stars, but here they were witnessing a being of extraordinary courage. Elira was more than a princess. She was a protector, a leader, and a force that demanded respect. The rival faction struggled against the combined human-Zitharan tactics. Their formations faltered, and ships collided in space as the coordinated defense overwhelmed them. Eric maneuvered his ship alongside Zitharan cruisers, delivering tactical strikes that disrupted enemy ranks. Together, humans and Zitharans created a symphony of strategy and bravery, proving that unity was stronger than fear, and courage could turn the tide of any battle. Even as the attackers retreated, Elira did not lower her defenses. She knew that the rival faction would regroup, and this victory was only temporary. The cost of hesitation could be catastrophic. Eric's crew worked tirelessly to repair their ship and assist with defensive measures, while Zitharan engineers reinforced shields and energy grids. Elira moved among them, offering guidance, encouragement, and quiet words of reassurance. When the battle finally subsided, the city lay scarred but intact. The humans and Zitharans alike had proven their resilience. Elira allowed herself a moment to breathe, her gaze drifting over the glowing cityscape. She knew that the rival faction would continue plotting, that the council would challenge her, and that the path ahead would be fraught with political and military obstacles. Yet she also knew that they had won more than a battle. They had won a statement. They had shown that courage, unity, and empathy could prevail even against fear and tradition. Eric approached her, his expression a mixture of awe and admiration. "Princess Elira," he said softly, "you risked everything, not just for me, but for all of us. I don't know if humans could ever repay you." Elira shook her head gently. "This is not about repayment, Captain. It is about doing what is right, about protecting life and showing that courage and empathy are more powerful than fear. Your people reminded me of something I had almost forgotten. That bravery comes in many forms, and wisdom is not only in knowledge but in action." Eric nodded, understanding her meaning. Humans often spoke of courage as a choice, a willingness to act despite fear. Elira had exemplified that choice, not for glory or power, but because it was necessary. In saving him and defending Zithra, she had proven that leadership was not measured by title or decree, but by the willingness to act when others would hesitate. As the days passed, Elira and Eric worked closely to strengthen defenses and plan for the future. They shared stories of their worlds, discussing cultures, strategies, and philosophies. Eric showed Elira the ways humans adapted, learned, and overcame challenges, while Elira shared Zitharan wisdom, technology, and her vision of a united, compassionate civilization. Slowly, a bond formed, not just between them but between their peoples. Humans began to understand Zitharan discipline, while Zitharans began to appreciate human resilience and creativity. Elira's actions had planted a seed, and the recent battle had nurtured it. The rival faction, though temporarily defeated, would continue to resist. Yet even they could not deny the strength of unity when courage and empathy guided it. Elira reflected on the events, realizing that the risk she had taken to save a single human life had grown into something much larger. The decision had sparked cooperation, challenged tradition, and reshaped perspectives. She understood that the path ahead would be difficult, that enemies and doubters remained, but she also knew that she had the strength to face them. Leadership was not about avoiding danger. It was about confronting it with wisdom, courage, and compassion. That evening, under the twin moons of Zithra, Elira and Eric stood in the palace gardens. The air was calm, the glowing flowers swaying gently. Eric turned to her, his voice quiet but firm. "Princess, I have seen many things in my life, wars, disasters, struggles, but I have never seen courage like yours. You didn't just save me, you inspired all of us. You showed what it means to lead." Elira looked at him, her luminous eyes reflecting the soft light. "And you, Captain Eric, reminded me that life is not just about rules or power. It is about connection, empathy, and the choices we make to protect others. Together, we have shown that even the smallest actions can ripple across the stars." For the first time, Elira felt a quiet certainty. The human she had saved was more than a visitor. He was a symbol of courage, adaptability, and hope. Together, they had forged an alliance that could change the course of history. The rival faction would return, political challenges would arise, and battles would be fought. Yet Elira knew that this was only the beginning, a beginning shaped by courage, trust, and the extraordinary bond between two worlds. As the night deepened, Elira and Eric gazed at the stars. Somewhere beyond Zithra, dangers and challenges waited, but they faced them not as isolated individuals, but as allies. Life had been saved, unity had been forged, and a new chapter had begun, one that would test their courage, strengthen their bond, and shape the future of the galaxy. In the quiet of the palace gardens, Elira understood that leadership was not measured by decree or title, but by action. She had risked everything for a single human life, and in doing so had discovered a power greater than any crystal or weapon, the power of empathy, courage, and the unwavering belief that life itself was worth protecting. And so, Part 3 ended with hope and determination. The battle had been won, But the war for understanding, unity, and justice was only beginning. Princess Elira had proven that one person's courage could inspire many, and that sometimes, risking everything for what is right could change the fate of worlds. Princess Elira stood on the balcony of the palace, overlooking the city that shimmered under the twin moons. Zithra was calm again, the chaos of battle now replaced by quiet determination. Repairs were underway, and the humans had integrated with the Zitharan engineers to help restore damaged structures. The victory had been hard-won, but it had left a lasting impression on both species. Elira knew that the challenges were far from over. The rival faction might have been repelled, but the council would not simply accept her actions without scrutiny. Inside the council chamber, elders gathered, their expressions tense and guarded. They had summoned Elira to explain her actions, to justify the risk she had taken in saving a human life. Some were still angry, others hesitant, and a few curious about what might come next. The room was filled with the hum of expectation. Elira entered calmly, her posture regal and unwavering. She faced the council with a steady gaze. "I understand that my actions have caused concern," she began, "but I acted not out of rebellion, nor for personal gain. I acted because a life was in danger. In doing so, I have discovered that cooperation, empathy, and courage can strengthen Zithra rather than weaken it." Elder Varus, still stern, spoke first. "Princess, you defied tradition and law. You risked your throne and endangered the reputation of our people. Why should the council not punish you for such recklessness?" Elira's eyes glowed softly with quiet authority. "Because true leadership is not measured by obedience alone. Leadership is measured by the choices one makes to protect life, to inspire courage, and to build unity. The humans we encountered are not threats. They are beings with intelligence, creativity, and bravery. By saving one life, we have opened the possibility of alliance, understanding, and growth." A murmur spread through the council. Some members were visibly moved, their rigid expressions softening. Others remained skeptical, unwilling to compromise tradition. Yet the council could not ignore the undeniable truth. Elira had acted wisely, and the combined defense of Zithra had proven her judgment. Elder Varus leaned back, folding his arms. "You speak well, Princess, but words alone cannot justify disobedience. What proof do we have that your actions were not dangerous to our people?" Elira gestured toward the holographic display, which showed the coordinated battle with the rival faction. Every movement, every tactic, every calculated maneuver demonstrated the strength of unity between humans and loyal Zitharans. "The battle proves it," she said. "Together, we have repelled an enemy far stronger than expected. The humans contributed courage, creativity, and skill. My people showed discipline, power, and precision. Without this cooperation, we would have suffered greatly. This is proof that courage guided by principle strengthens, rather than diminishes, our people." The room fell silent as the council members absorbed her words. Even those who had opposed her could not deny the results. Elira continued, "Leadership requires risk. It requires courage. It requires the willingness to act for what is right, even when others hesitate. I risked my throne to save one life, and in doing so we have safeguarded many. This is not recklessness, it is responsibility." Slowly, the room began to shift. Members who had been skeptical exchanged glances. The youngest elder, a woman named Lyra, spoke quietly but firmly. "Princess Elira is right. We have witnessed her judgment and courage firsthand. Perhaps we have focused too much on rules and not enough on life itself. Perhaps this is the beginning of a new era for Zithra." Varus remained silent, his expression unreadable. Elira understood his hesitation. Tradition ran deep, but she sensed the tide was changing. The council, while still divided, began to accept that her actions had merit beyond immediate politics. She had not only defended the humans, but had proven that Zithra could adapt and grow stronger through empathy and courage. Meanwhile, Arik and his human crew prepared to leave Zithra. They had learned much about the planet and its people, and they had been inspired by Elira's leadership. They had also formed bonds with Zitharan engineers, scientists, and soldiers, leaving a lasting impression of humanity's potential across the stars. Before their departure, Arik sought a private audience with Elira. The princess met him in the palace gardens, where the crystalline flowers glowed softly in the night. "Princess," he began, "I want to thank you again. You did not just save my life. You changed the way I see courage, leadership, and the potential for unity between our worlds. Humans and Zitharans are very different, yet we share something important: the capacity to choose what is right." Elira smiled, a soft, radiant expression that reflected both pride and warmth. "And you reminded me, Captain Arik, that life is not about rules or expectations alone. It is about connection, empathy, and the choices we make in the face of fear. You have taught me as much as I hope I have taught you." Arik nodded, looking around at the gardens, the palace, and the glowing city beyond. "I hope our people will remember this alliance, Princess. I hope this is the start of something bigger than us, bigger than any single battle." Elira's gaze turned to the stars. "It is just the beginning. The galaxy is vast and challenges will continue, but courage, cooperation, and empathy are forces stronger than any weapon. Together, humans and Zitharans can face whatever comes next." The following days were filled with farewells. Humans and Zitharans exchanged gifts, knowledge, and stories. Arik and his crew boarded their ship, ready to continue their journey across the stars. Elira watched them go, feeling a mixture of pride, sadness, and hope. The humans carried with them not only memories but the possibility of a lasting friendship between worlds. Back in the council chamber, Elira addressed the remaining members once more. "Let this be a lesson," she said. "Leadership requires courage, empathy, and wisdom. It requires the willingness to act when others hesitate, and the ability to see potential where others see danger. We have proven that cooperation and bravery can overcome fear and prejudice. Let this be the foundation of a new era for Zithra." The council remained silent for a moment, then one by one, members nodded. Even Elder Varus, still reserved, inclined his head slightly. The shift was subtle, but Elira knew that change had begun. The seeds of a new philosophy had been planted, nurtured by courage, empathy, and the willingness to risk everything for what is right. Days turned into weeks, and life on Zithra slowly returned to normal. Repairs continued, lessons were learned, and alliances strengthened. Elira continued to lead with grace and wisdom, her reputation growing not just as a princess, but as a protector and visionary. The humans remained in contact, sending messages of friendship and cooperation across the stars. The galaxy had changed, and Zithra had changed with it. One evening, Elira walked through the palace gardens alone, reflecting on the journey. She thought about the humans, the rival faction, the council, and the choices she had made. Saving a single human life had been an act of compassion, but it had grown into something far larger. It had tested her courage, strengthened her leadership, and reshaped her world. She understood that true power was not in technology, weaponry, or wealth, but in empathy, courage, and the willingness to act for what is right. Arik's message arrived as it often did now. "Princess Elira, your courage inspired us all. Zithra is stronger because of you. I hope one day we meet again under stars of peace to continue building what we have begun." Elira smiled, reading the words carefully. She typed a reply. "Captain Arik, your courage and ingenuity inspired me as well. The galaxy is vast, but perhaps one day humans and Zitharans will explore it together, learning from each other and growing stronger in unity." As she sent the message, Elira gazed once more at the stars. She felt a quiet certainty that the galaxy had changed, not because of war, conquest, or power, but because one princess had chosen to risk everything for a single life. The ripple of that choice had grown into a wave of courage, unity, and hope. Elira knew that challenges would continue to arise, that enemies and rival factions would test her resolve. Yet she also knew that Zithra, guided by principles of courage, empathy, and cooperation, would endure and thrive. She had proven that leadership was not about fear or control, but about choosing to do what is right, even when it meant risking everything. The humans' departure did not mark an ending, but the beginning of a new era. Zithra would continue to grow, to learn, and to explore, guided by leaders who understood that the value of life transcended rules and tradition. Elira had shown that one courageous act could inspire many, and that the power of empathy and bravery could change the fate of worlds. Under the light of the twin moons, Princess Elira stood tall, her heart filled with hope and determination. She had risked everything for one human life, and in doing so, she had saved more than a life. She had saved the future, shaped the destiny of her people, and proved that courage and compassion were the greatest powers in the galaxy. And as the stars shone above Zithra, a new chapter began, one where humans and Zithrans could walk together through the galaxy, united by respect, understanding, and the extraordinary power of life itself. The alien princess risked her throne to save one human life.